Can we be honest for a second? Quiet quitting is exhausting.
Yeah, I know, that sounds completely backward, right? I mean, it's supposed to be the solution, the big secret to surviving the daily grind. But let's really think about it. The amount of mental energy it takes to spend all day, every day, actively trying not to care, it's a ton of work.
It's kind of like this. You ever try to hold a big beach ball underwater? You're not exactly hustling, but man, your arms are burning from the constant strain of just keeping that thing down. That right there is quiet quitting. You're physically at your desk, but you're just simmering in resentment. And you go home completely wiped out.
And that's why we need to talk about the quiet quitting trap. See, it dangles this promise of relief, but what it actually does is just slowly, quietly bleed you dry.
So if this is just a slow motion way to burn out, what are we supposed to do instead? What's the real alternative? Well, believe it or not, the answer might come from this ancient Chinese idea that gets completely misunderstood in the West. It's called Wu Wei.
And right off the bat, we need to clear something up because this is a big one. Most people hear Wu Wei and they immediately think doing nothing. They think it's about being lazy or passive. No, that's totally wrong. The real meaning is something more like effortless action. Not no action, but a totally different kind of action. And when you put them side by side, the difference is just night and day. Quiet quitting is all about fighting, resisting pressure. It breeds this resentful detachment, and all that friction, it just dulls your blade. You know, your energy, your focus, your creativity. But Wu Wei, that's about finding the spaces. It's about finding this effortless flow that actually preserves your sharpness for the stuff that really matters. It's the exact opposite of fighting.
Okay, so to really get this, we can't just talk theory. We need a story. And there's this incredible ancient parable that explains Wu Wei perfectly. It's the story of Butcher Ding.
So the story goes like this. There's a king, and he's watching his personal butcher, a guy named Ding, get ready to carve up an ox.
But as he's watching, the king notices something really strange. Ding isn't hacking and chopping and struggling. Not at all. He moves like he's dancing. His knife just glides through, making this soft swish sound. And poof, the whole thing is done, in moments. And he hasn't even broken a sweat. The king is just blown away. He's never seen anything like it. So he asks him, How is your skill so perfect? So Ding puts his knife down, smiles, and explains his secret. He tells the king, look, a regular butcher, they need a new knife every single month. A good butcher needs a new one every year. And why? Because they just hack away. They're fighting the animal, smashing their blade against bone and gristle. And then he drops this number that just floors the king, 19. He says, this knife I'm holding, I've been using this same knife for 19 years, and it is still as sharp as the day I first got it. I mean, how is that even possible? And here's the secret. He says, I don't hack, I don't use force. What I do is I follow what's already there. I look for the natural spaces, the gaps between the joints. And because there's already an opening, my blade just passes right through. No effort, no resistance. That right there is the whole secret, and it applies to every single one of us in our jobs. We have got to stop hacking at the bone.
So what does hacking at the bone look like in an office? Well, it's arguing with that manager who is never ever going to change their mind. It's fighting against some corporate policy that's set in stone. It's stressing out over results you literally have no control over. All of that, that's just creating friction. That is you smashing your knife against the bone, dulling your own blade, and burning yourself out.
Okay, so how do we actually do this? It's a really simple 3-step practice. First, you have to identify the bone. What's the thing that isn't going to change? Then number 2, find the gap. What's the path of least resistance around it? And finally, number 3, move without force. Don't fight it, flow with it.
The best way to think about it is like this. Your day is a river. The obstacles, the annoying emails, the difficult people, they're just rocks in the river. Quiet quitting is like trying to build a dam to stop the water. It just builds up pressure. Wu Wei is being the water. You just flow around the rock, effortlessly, without losing any of your momentum. And here's the most important part. You are still ridiculously effective. The ox still gets carved, the projects still get finished, the work gets done. The only difference is that you are not worn down and destroyed by the process. You're preserving your energy, your sharpness for the things that actually matter. like your life outside of work.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Are you exhausted because your work is actually that hard? Or are you exhausted because you're spending all your energy fighting against things that will simply never move?
Subscribe for daily wisdom.